The great chamber of the Galactic Council was quiet. Thousands of alien delegates sat in their seats, their eyes fixed on the central platform where the fate of an entire species was about to be decided. The room stretched upward for hundreds of meters, filled with representatives from worlds that humans had never seen and would never be allowed to visit. High Arbiter Vethkel stood at the center, his tall gray body casting a long shadow across the polished floor. His 4 eyes moved slowly across the assembly, making sure every delegate was paying attention. This moment had been planned for decades. The vote had already been taken in secret sessions. What happened now was simply theater, a show of unity against a common threat. The species known as humanity is hereby banished to the outer rim, Vethkel announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. Let no member world trade with them. Let no ship grant them passage. Let their name be forgotten among the stars. Commander Daniel Cole stood before the assembly in his dress uniform. He had traveled across 3 star systems to be here, hoping that somehow the council might see reason. Behind him, Ambassador Lisa Morgan kept her face calm, but Daniel could see her hands shaking slightly at her sides. "You are making a mistake," Daniel said. His voice was steady and quiet, but something in his tone made several council members look away. "Your kind is too aggressive," Vethkel replied. "Too ambitious. You spread too quickly. You consume too many resources. You ask too many questions. The council has decided." Lisa stepped forward, her diplomatic training keeping her voice even. "We came to you in peace. We asked only for fair trade agreements and cooperation between our peoples. And that is exactly the problem." The Arbiter's tone held something that might have been pity. "In 200 cycles, your species has expanded further than the Kethra did in 1,000. You build where others rest. You question what others accept. You are chaos in a universe that values order." The human delegation was escorted from the chamber by armed guards. As they walked through the clean white corridors of the station, Daniel glanced at Lisa. "How long do we have?" Lisa checked her datapad, scrolling through reports from Earth. "The Council's enforcement fleet will reach our border colonies in 18 months. They will set up a complete blockade. No ships, in or out. No trade. No communication. Then we have 18 months to prepare." "Prepare for what?" "Daniel, they have 10,000 warships. We have less than 200. This is not a fight we can win." Daniel stopped walking and turned to face her. "Who said anything about fighting?" The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Daniel spent most of that time in his quarters, reading reports and studying maps of human space. The Council controlled all the jump points, the natural shortcuts through space that made interstellar travel possible. Without access to those points, human ships would take years to travel between systems instead of days. They wanted humanity to starve, to wither, to fade away into nothing. Back on Earth, President Samuel Grant received the news in the Oval Office. Outside the windows, Washington was covered in snow, the white dome of the Capitol building shining in the winter sun. Inside, the mood was anything but peaceful. "They really did it," Samuel said, reading the official document for the 3rd time. "They actually banished us." Dr. Catherine Perry, his chief science advisor, sat across from him with a tablet displaying projections that grew worse with every passing minute. "Sir, if the blockade holds, our outer colonies will start running out of essential supplies within 2 years. Earth can survive longer, but without access to rare minerals from the asteroid belts, our technology will start to fail within a decade. What are our options?" Catherine pulled up a new screen. "I've already spoken with the heads of every major space agency and private company. We have some ideas, but they are all long shots." Samuel leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. His grandfather used to tell him stories about the Great Depression, about times when people thought America was finished. They had planted victory gardens, rationed food, turned scrap metal into tanks. "My grandfather survived the Depression," Samuel said slowly. "My father survived 3 wars. Humans have been surviving impossible situations since we lived in caves and hunted with rocks." "Sir, get me everyone, Catherine. Every scientist, every engineer, every inventor we have. If the Council wants to banish us to the darkness, then we are going to learn how to see in it. The news spread across Earth within hours. People gathered in the streets, watching the broadcasts on huge screens. Some cried. Some shouted in anger. But many just stood in silence, processing the fact that they had been rejected by the galaxy. In a small apartment in Chicago, a young engineer named Kevin Blake watched the president's address with his wife, Maria. They had been planning to apply for positions on one of the colony ships, dreaming of starting a new life among the stars. "What do we do now?" Maria asked. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights that stretched to the horizon. "We do what we have always done. We survive. We adapt. We keep going. The Council has the whole galaxy on their side, and we have something they do not understand." Kevin turned to face her, and there was something fierce in his eyes. "We have nothing left to lose." Across the world, similar conversations were happening. In Tokyo, scientists began working on new energy systems that would not require imported fuel. In Berlin, engineers started designing ships that could operate without the rare materials controlled by Council worlds. In Buenos Aires, farmers experimented with crops that could grow in the harsh conditions of human colony worlds. The Council had expected humanity to panic. They had expected riots, collapse, surrender. Instead, they got something far more dangerous. They got determination. 6 months after the banishment was announced, the first blockade ships took their positions around human space. Their commanders reported that the humans were not even trying to resist. No warships approached the border. No diplomatic messages were sent. The aliens watched and waited, expecting to see the beginning of a slow death. What they did not see were the thousands of scientists working in underground laboratories. They did not see the factories being converted to produce new technologies. They did not see the quiet preparations being made on every human world. Commander Daniel Cole stood on the observation deck of the research station orbiting Mars, watching the distant lights of the blockade ships. Lisa Morgan joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I think they have one," she said. Daniel took the coffee and smiled. "Let them think that. By the time they realize their mistake, it will be too late." "Too late for what?" "Too late to stop us from becoming something they never imagined." The stars glittered cold and distant beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, the Council celebrated their victory over the dangerous human species. They had no idea what they had just started. The exile had begun. But it would not end the way the Council expected. 5 years had passed since the banishment. The Council's blockade held firm around human space like a net made of warships and weapons. Every jump point that led to human colonies was guarded by vessels from a dozen different species. Trade ships that tried to smuggle goods to human worlds were captured, their crews thrown into prison cells on distant planets. On the colony world of New Providence, Mayor Kevin Blake walked through the hydroponics bay that now filled 3 floors of what used to be a shopping center. Green leaves reached toward artificial sunlight. Tomatoes and beans grew in carefully monitored water solutions. The air smelled of earth and growing things. A small piece of home in an alien sky. Production is up 12% this quarter, his agricultural director Maria Santos reported. Walking beside him with a tablet in her hands, "We finally solved the protein problem. The algae tanks are making enough to feed everyone without the grain we used to import." "And morale?" Maria hesitated before answering. "People are tired, Kevin. 5 years of rationing. 5 years of being told we are alone in the universe. Some of them are starting to wonder if the Council was right about us." Kevin stopped at an observation window. Outside, the red sun of New Providence was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. In the distance, construction machines worked on a new factory, their lights blinking like stars that had fallen to Earth. "If the Council thought cutting us off would make us weak," he said quietly, "they do not understand that humans are never more dangerous than when we have no other choice." Back on Earth, Dr. Catherine Perry had changed in 5 years. Her hair had turned gray, and deep lines marked her face. She had not slept more than 4 hours a night since the blockade began. But her mind was still sharp, and on this particular morning, She stood before an assembly of world leaders with news that would change everything. "We call it the fold drive," she explained, pointing to the holographic display behind her. The image showed a small ship surrounded by strange energy patterns. "For years, we relied on jump points to travel between stars. The Council controls those points, which is how they maintain the blockade. And this fold drive does not need jump points." President Samuel Grant asked, leaning forward in his chair. "Correct. It creates its own pathway through a lay of space we call subspace. The range is unlimited. We can go anywhere, instantly." The room erupted in whispers. Admiral Patricia Stone, commander of Earth's defense fleet, spoke up from her seat. "You were telling me we can bypass the entire blockade?" "Not just bypass it." Catherine allowed herself a small smile, the first she had worn in months. "We can go places the Council has never explored. We can find resources they have never discovered. The galaxy is suddenly much bigger than they realized." Grant's eyes were wide. "How long until we have working ships?" "We already do." Catherine's smile grew wider. "The test vessel completed its first successful fold 3 days ago. We kept it secret until we could confirm the results." "Where did it go?" "The Andromeda Galaxy. Back. Total travel time, 47 minutes. The silence that followed was so complete that Catherine could hear her own heartbeat. On the colony world of Haven's Rest, a young woman named Alina Cole celebrated her 18th birthday in a small apartment with her mother. Her father, Commander Daniel Cole, watched through a video screen from his posting on Mars, his image flickering slightly from the distance. "I wish I could be there," Daniel said, his voice carrying a sadness that he tried to hide. "It is okay, Dad." Alina smiled at the screen. "Mom made cake." "Well, she made something that is almost like cake. The real sugar ran out last year. How are things there?" Alina glanced at her mother before answering. "People are managing. The new farms are producing well. There is talk of expanding the dome to make room for more families." Daniel nodded slowly. "I have news. I cannot tell you what it is yet, but things are about to change. Good changes." "What kind of changes?" "The kind that means we will not be trapped here forever." 3 months later, the first fold-capable ship was ready for a real mission. It was called the Pioneer, a small vessel designed for exploration rather than combat. Daniel Cole stood on the bridge as the crew prepared for departure. "Destination confirmed," the navigation officer reported. "A star system beyond Council space, approximately 12,000 light-years from here." "Fold drive charged and ready," the engineer added. Daniel looked at the view screen, which showed the familiar stars of human space. Beyond those stars lay the blockade, and beyond that, a galaxy that had tried to forget humanity existed. "Begin fold sequence." The ship hummed with energy. The stars on the screen blurred and twisted. For a moment, everything went white, and Daniel felt like he was falling through infinity. Then, just as quickly as it started, it was over. The view screen showed new stars. A yellow sun burned at the center of a system filled with planets that no human had ever seen. "Fold complete," the navigation officer announced, her voice shaking with excitement. "We are 12,347 light-years from Earth. Time elapsed? 16 seconds. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Around him, the crew was cheering, hugging each other, some of them crying with joy. The impossible had become possible. "Start scanning the system," Daniel ordered. "Look for resources, habitable worlds, anything useful. This is just the first step." Over the next year, more fold ships were built. They spread out in all directions, discovering system after system that the Council had never explored. They found worlds rich in minerals, planets with breathable air, asteroid fields filled with rare materials. The Council's blockade became meaningless. Humanity was no longer trapped. They were free, and freedom tasted sweet after 5 years of darkness. On her 19th birthday, Lena Cole received a message from her father. He was standing on the surface of a new world, green grass beneath his feet and blue sky above his head. "We found a place," Daniel said, his eyes bright with hope. "A world with clean water and good soil. We are calling it New Beginning. When can we come?" "Soon, sweetheart," very soon. The long night is finally over. Behind him, construction crews were already working, building the foundations of a new city. The sun was rising over mountains that had never been named, casting golden light across a future that the Council had tried to prevent. They had failed. Humanity was not dying. Humanity was just getting started. 10 years had passed since the banishment. The Council's intelligence services first noticed something strange in their routine scans of the Outer Rim. Ships were appearing in systems that had no jump points. Energy signatures were being detected that matched no known technology. Reports came in from frontier worlds of strange vessels moving faster than anything should be able to move. High Arbiter Vethko, older now and slower, summoned his advisors to an emergency meeting. The great chamber was nearly empty, filled only with the highest-ranking members of the Council's military and scientific divisions. Vethkel demanded, pointing at the star map that floated in the center of the room. Red dots marked confirmed human sightings, scattered across a region of space that should have taken thousands of years to reach by normal means. Admiral Kethros of the Fleet Command stepped forward, his scales rippling with nervousness. "We do not know how they are doing it, High Arbiter. Our best scientists are confused. These systems have no natural jump points. The humans should not be able to reach them, but they are reaching them. Yes. And they are building colonies. Our latest estimates suggest they have established at least 60 new settlements in regions we have never explored." Another advisor, the economist Selavith, pulled up more data on the display. "It gets worse, High Arbiter. We have intercepted communications that suggest they have discovered mineral deposits that are larger than anything in Council space. They are mining asteroids and processing materials we did not even know existed." Vethkel's secondary eyes narrowed with concern. "What about their population? Growing faster than we predicted? Much faster. Without the limits of our territory, they are expanding at a rate we have never seen in any species." The Arbiter turned to face the viewport, where distant stars shone against the black void. He remembered the day of the banishment, the certainty he had felt that humanity would slowly fade away. He had been so sure of his decision. "We sent them to die," he said quietly. "We thought isolation would destroy them, it appears." Kethros said carefully that we achieved the opposite effect.
Meanwhile,
on the newly established colony of Horizon's Edge, Commander Daniel Cole watched the sunset from the deck of his new home. The sky was a brilliant purple, streaked with bands of orange from the two suns that warmed this world. Lisa Morgan, Admiral Morgan of the Human Expansion Fleet, walked up the path to join him. She carried 2 glasses of wine made from grapes grown in the colony's own vineyards. "The Council is getting nervous," she said, handing him a glass. "Our intelligence reports suggest they are thinking about lifting the blockade and opening diplomatic talks." Daniel took the wine and sipped it slowly. "It is too late for that, is it?" He gestured toward the horizon, where the lights of the growing city twinkled in the gathering darkness. Construction machines worked through the night, building homes and factories and schools. Children played in the streets, children who had been born on this world and knew nothing of Earth except stories. "We have built something here, Lisa, something they can never take away from us. The blockade did not just fail to destroy us. It forced us to become something greater than we ever would have been under their rules." Lisa sat down beside him, her own eyes fixed on the city below. "Some people are calling for revenge. They want to show the Council what we are capable of now. What do you think?" She was quiet for a long moment before answering. "I think revenge is a waste of time. We have the stars now, Daniel. All of them. Every direction we look, there are new worlds to explore, new resources to discover. What could the Council possibly offer us that we cannot get for ourselves?" Daniel smiled at her words. "When did you become so wise?" "Somewhere around year 3, when I realized that being angry at the Council was exhausting, and being better than them was much more satisfying." On Earth. President Samuel Grant addressed the planet for the annual Remembrance Day ceremony. 10 years ago, humanity had been cast out. Today, they were stronger than ever. "My fellow humans," Grant said, standing at a podium overlooking a crowd of thousands. "We were told that we were too dangerous, too ambitious, too chaotic. The Council looked at us and saw a threat to be eliminated." He paused, letting his words sink in. They were right about one thing. We are dangerous, but not in the way they thought. We are dangerous because we refuse to give up. We are dangerous because we find solutions when others see only problems. We are dangerous because we never stop dreaming of a better future. The crowd cheered, their voices rising into the sky. In 10 years, we have gone from prisoners to pioneers. We have built more than 100 new colonies on worlds the Council never knew existed. We have developed technologies that make their ships look like toys. And we did it not with their help, but in spite of their attempt to destroy us. On the colony world of New Beginning, Alina Cole listened to the president's speech through her earpiece as she worked in the research lab. She was 23 now, a scientist like her grandmother Catherine. Studying the strange minerals found in the outer rim, her father appeared in the doorway. Older and grayer, but still strong. "Taking a break?" he asked, just listening to the speech. She removed her earpiece and turned to face him. "Dad, do you think we will ever go back? To the old territories, I mean?" Daniel considered the question. "We could, if we wanted. Our fold ships could reach any system in Council space in minutes. But why would we? Everything we need is here. Some people still want to punish them. Some people will always want that." Daniel walked into the lab and looked at the samples Alina was studying. But the best revenge is not war. The best revenge is success. Let them watch us grow while they stay trapped in their little corner of the galaxy, following rules that no longer matter. Alina nodded slowly. "I heard the Council is talking about sending ambassadors. They're scared. They should be. What happens when they come?" Daniel looked at his daughter, seeing in her eyes the same determination that had kept humanity going through the darkest years. That will be up to them. They can join us, or they can stay behind. But one way or another, the universe is changing, and they cannot stop it. Outside the window of the lab, ships lifted off from the spaceport, heading to new destinations across the galaxy. Each one carried humans who had been born in darkness, but refused to let it define them. Each one represented a dream that the Council had tried to kill. The expansion continued, unstoppable and unafraid. Humanity was spreading across the stars like seeds carried on a cosmic wind, and nothing in the universe could slow them down. 25 years had passed since the banishment. The human diplomatic ship appeared in Council space without any warning. One moment the space near the capital station was empty. In the next moment a vessel was simply there, as if it had always existed in that spot. It had bypassed every checkpoint, every defense grid, every sensor array, as if they were nothing more than suggestions. Panic spread through the station like fire through dry grass. Defense cannons powered up with loud humming sounds. Fighter squadrons scrambled from their hangars, pilots rushing to their ships with hearts pounding. Alarms blared in every corridor. But the human ship made no aggressive moves. It just waited, floating peacefully in space, broadcasting a single message on every frequency. "This is Ambassador Nathan Brooks of the Human Confederation. We request an audience with the Galactic Council. We come in peace, but we will not be ignored." The council chamber was packed when Nathan finally entered. Every seat was filled with delegates from member worlds, all of them staring at the human who walked calmly toward the central platform. He was flanked by two aides, a man named Gregory Shaw and a woman named Patricia Mendez, both of them young and confident. Nathan was part of a generation that had grown up under the blockade. He had been 3 years old when humanity was banished, and he remembered nothing of the galaxy except its rejection. Now he stood before the very beings who had tried to destroy his people. He felt no fear. Vethkel sat in the arbiter's chair, his scales faded to a dull gray with age. His movements were slower than they had been 25 years ago, but his eyes still held the same calculating intelligence. "You should not be here," the arbiter said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The banishment remains in effect." Nathan smiled, a calm and patient expression that showed no anger. "With respect, High Arbiter, your banishment ended the moment we developed technology that made it meaningless. We are not here to ask for permission. We are here to tell you about new realities." He activated his own holographic display, overriding the chamber's systems with ease that made several technical advisors gasp in shock. A star map appeared in the air, far more detailed than anything the Council possessed. Human territories were marked in blue, stretching across huge regions of unexplored space. The Human Confederation now controls more than 400 inhabited worlds, Nathan explained, gesturing at the map. Our population is more than 15 billion people. We have access to resources, technologies, and positions in space that the Council cannot match. Whispers filled the chamber. Some delegates looked physically sick. Others shifted nervously in their seats, unable to believe what they were seeing. We could have come here as conquerors, Nathan continued, his voice steady and clear. Some of our people wanted exactly that. They remembered the blockade. They remembered the years of hunger and hardship. They remembered the arrogance of a council that thought it could kill us like insects. He paused, letting the weight of unspoken threat hang in the air. Every delegate understood what he was saying. The humans had the power to destroy them. Everyone in the room knew it. But we chose differently. We chose to offer you something you never offered us. A chance. Chance for what? Vethkel asked, his voice showing the first signs of uncertainty. Partnership. Real partnership between equals. We have technologies you need. You have knowledge of this region of space that would take us many years to learn on our own. Together, we could accomplish things that neither of us can imagine alone. The Arbiter leaned forward in his seat, his secondary eyes fixed on Nathan's face. And if we refuse? Nathan's expression did not change. Then we continue as we have been, growing, expanding, becoming something you cannot ignore. The question is not whether humanity will be a major power in this galaxy. That has already been decided. The question is whether the Council will be our partner or our competition. You speak of partnership, said a delegate from the Kethra worlds. But how can we trust you? Your kind was banished because you were considered dangerous. Nathan turned to face the speaker. You are right that we are dangerous. But we are dangerous in the way a storm is dangerous, or a wildfire. We bring change wherever we go. The question is whether you want to ride the storm or be swept away by it. Another delegate, a small creature with bright green scales, spoke up. What guarantees can you offer? What proof that you will not simply take what you want by force? Nathan gestured to his aides, who stepped forward with tablets containing data. For the past 5 years, we have been sending medical supplies to Outer Rim worlds that were suffering from a plague your council did nothing to stop. We have shared agricultural technology with species that your member worlds refuse to help. We have done more good in 5 years than the council has done in 5 centuries. Why? Vethkel asked. Because it was the right thing to do. Because humans do not believe in letting others suffer when we have the power to help. Because we are not the monsters you told yourselves we were. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Delegates argued and shouted and threatened. Some demanded that humanity be punished for violating the blockade. Others pointed out that punishment was no longer possible, that the humans were now too powerful to challenge. In the end, the vote was not close. The council agreed to lift the banishment and begin negotiations for a new partnership agreement. Nathan sent a message to Earth that night. Standing alone in the quarters that had been assigned to him on the station, his words were simple. He said yes. The long exile is finally over. On Earth, the news was received with quiet celebration. There were no parades, no wild parties. People gathered in small groups, talking quietly about what the future might hold. They had survived the darkness, and now they stood at the beginning of something new. Admiral Lisa Morgan, now 70 years old, but still sharp as ever, watched the sunset from her home on the coast of California. Daniel Cole had passed away 3 years earlier, but she still felt his presence beside her, especially on nights like this. We did it, Daniel, she whispered to the empty air. We showed them what we are made of. The stars appeared one by one as the sky darkened, and Lisa smiled at them like old friends. The council had tried to bury humanity in the Outer Rim, hoping they would fade away and be forgotten. They had no idea that the darkness was exactly what humanity needed to find its true strength. 50 years had passed since the banishment. The memorial stood at the heart of Unity Station, the first joint installation built by humans and council species together. It orbited a star that had once marked the edge of human space, a border that no longer existed. Names were carved into its surface, humans and aliens who had died in the early years of cooperation, before trust had fully grown between the two sides. Admiral Lisa Morgan, now 92 years old, but still clear-eyed and strong-willed, laid flowers at the base of the memorial. Her white hair was pulled back from her face, and her uniform still fit perfectly despite her age. Beside her stood her granddaughter, Captain Alina Morgan, commander of the joint exploration vessel Horizon. 50 years, Lisa murmured, her eyes tracing the names carved in stone. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Alina took her grandmother's arm gently. The ceremony will start soon. The council delegations are already gathering in the main hall. They walked together through the corridors of the station, past windows that showed ships from many different worlds moving in coordinated patterns. Human cruisers flew alongside Vethkal destroyers. Kethra science vessels shared data with Earth research stations. The old boundaries had blurred over the decades, then disappeared completely. Children of mixed heritage ran through the halls, laughing and playing games that combined traditions from a dozen different cultures. Some had the gray skin of council species, but the bright eyes of humans. Others looked completely alien, but spoke perfect English with American accents. In the main assembly hall, the celebration was already beginning. High Arbiter Korath, who had taken over from Vethkal 15 years ago, stood at the podium. Vethkal had died peacefully in his sleep, having spent his final years working to repair the damage his earlier decisions had caused. 50 cycles ago, Korath announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. My predecessor made a choice that he believed would protect the Council from a dangerous new species. He was wrong, but not in the way he expected. The crowd listened in respectful silence, humans and aliens standing side by side. Humanity did not destroy us. They did not conquer us or absorb us into their territory. Instead, they showed us something we had forgotten over thousands of years of careful stagnation. They showed us that growth requires challenge, that strength comes from difficulty, that the greatest achievements come from the darkest times. He paused, his secondary eyes moving across the assembled delegates. The banishment was meant to be a death sentence. Instead, it became a gift that humanity repaid with kindness we did not deserve. Today we celebrate not just the end of that dark chapter, but the beginning of something that has never existed before. A true union of species, working together toward goals that help everyone. The applause that followed was loud and long. Lisa wiped tears from her eyes, remembering all the friends she had lost along the way. Daniel, Catherine, Samuel, and so many others who had not lived to see this day. Later, at the reception after the ceremony, Alina found herself talking with a young Kethra engineer named Senthil. They stood by a viewport, watching a human colony ship fold into subspace, its blue light flashing once before it vanished completely. "Oh, my grandmother's generation learned to hate the Council," Alina said honestly. "They had good reasons for that hate. But I've never known anything except working together." Senthil's translator turned his words into slightly awkward English. "My egg parents told me that humans were monsters, chaos bringers, who would destroy everything we had built. I was taught to fear your kind before I ever met one of you. And now?" The engineer made a gesture that Alina had learned to recognize as a smile. "Now I work beside humans every single day. My closest colleague is from a place called Texas. She tells me jokes that I do not understand, and shares food that makes my stomach hurt. But I cannot imagine my life without her friendship." Lena laughed warmly. "That sounds about right." Across the station, Lisa sat alone in an observation lounge, watching the stars through the great window. The party continued behind her, voices raised in celebration. But she needed a moment of quiet. Nathan Brooks found her there. He was in his 50s now, gray showing in his hair, lines marking his face from decades of diplomatic work. He had spent his entire adult life building bridges between species that had once been enemies. "You should be celebrating," he said, settling into the chair beside her. "I have had enough speeches for one lifetime." Nathan laughed softly. "That is fair." He was quiet for a moment, then spoke again. Do you think we made the right choices? All those years ago? Lisa thought about the question carefully before answering. Through the viewport, she could see ships from many different worlds moving together through the darkness. Human vessels and council vessels. Flying side by side toward destinations that would have seemed impossible 50 years ago. The council banished us because they were afraid of what we might become, she said finally. They thought isolation would make us weak. Instead, it taught us who we really are, and who is that? Lisa smiled, her eyes still fixed on the endless stars. Survivors, builders, dreamers, the kind of people who look at the impossible and see it as a challenge to overcome. They tried to bury us in darkness, Nathan. They did not realize that we would learn to create our own light. The celebration continued through the night. Voices raised in a dozen different languages, old enemies becoming close friends. Musicians played songs that mixed human instruments with alien melodies, creating something new and beautiful that belonged to no single culture. Alina danced with Senthil, laughing as he tried to follow human steps with his 3 legs. Nearby, human children played tag with young aliens, their games mixing and merging into something entirely new and beyond the station. In the vast expanse of space that humanity had claimed and cultivated, new ships set out for new horizons. They carried the children of Earth to worlds their ancestors had never dreamed of. 2 futures that stretched out like an infinite road. Lisa watched them go. Remembering a young woman who had stood before the council 50 years ago, trembling with fear and anger, that woman could never have imagined this moment. She could never have imagined what humanity would become. The council had banished humans to the outer rim, hoping they would fade away and die in the darkness. They were already too delayed. By the time they realized their mistake, humanity had already become something greater than anyone had imagined. They had turned their exile into an opportunity, their prison into a launching pad, their darkness into a chance to shine brighter than ever before. And now, as the stars wheeled overhead and the celebration continued below, the future stretched out before them, unlimited and full of promise. The banishment was over. The darkness had passed, and humanity, along with their new allies, stepped forward into the light of a new dawn. The story of the exiled species had become the story of a galaxy united, and it was only the beginning.